I was 17 years old. I don't really remember why I was doing this, but there I was running down a long, steep grass hill. Now normally that's not quite as big of a deal because you're paying attention to some of those usual scientific, in fact, everyday scientific laws such as gravity and momentum and things like that. But I've been told that teenagers tend to use only half their brain, and I get that from good biological science or whatever. I've seen it on a TED Talk, so I guess that makes it true, right? At least that's my personal experience matches up with that. Yeah, teenagers, I seem to have been using only half my brain at this moment. So I'm running down this hill, which normally would have been fine. I was rather sporty at the time, a long time ago, and I was running down this hill, but there was two factors in play. Number one, it was the middle of the night. So it was very difficult to see. It was in the middle of the night. And number two, I'm running down the hill with a bunch of other yelling, screaming teenage guys. Okay, so then that can help you understand that testosterone was flowing like a raging river. And although it was not ever stated this way, we were just running down the hill for fun. But of course, it was a race. All right? It was a race because we're doing this and we're guys and we're just running down the hill. So that makes it a race. And so nobody's holding back at all. We're just going for it. Now, that was fun for a while. That was fun as we're going down this hill, but then I remember getting to this point where very near the end, where it was about to kind of level off, and I just remember seeing out of the periphery of my vision that we're all here at the same moment. We'd realized that gravity has caught up to us, momentum has caught up to us, and that we had hit a moment where our legs needed to move a little bit faster than they ever had, ever. And in my experience, ever will again. And so we're getting to that moment, and you just kind of got this sense that we're all a little bit unnerved. We've pushed it a little bit too far, and some of us are about to entirely spill out down this grass hill and get up and keep going as if nothing happened and that was so cool, right? Others of us are about to somehow pull this out and keep going and feel invincible and like that was the most awesome thing ever. But there was a moment there where we're not sure who's going to do what and what's going to take place. There was that single slice of time. Now I was thinking this week that life can feel like that so many times. Where you're in that moment, and at least in my experience, where I've got so much going on, where I've got things going on. Some of it's great stuff, some of it's difficult stuff. Some of it's good and wonderful. It doesn't matter what kind of stuff it is, but there's enough of it where I'm not sure if I'm going to pull through at this particular moment. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to get through this day. I'm not sure if I'm going to get through this week. I'm going to get through this season. And sometimes it's because of difficult things or good things, but you just find yourself sometimes in a moment where I'm a little overwhelmed. And I'm not sure if I'm about to take a little tumble or with this day, or if I'm gonna go crazing through it. Well, on Tuesday, I had one of those mornings, and I just woke up. Good things, all good things, all good things. Again, another Frozen line, I guess. Didn't mean that, but all good things, all good things. And I found myself making my stress list. In fact, I entitled it "Stress List." I just wanted to record. I had all this stuff bubbling in on the inside, things that were overwhelming me and getting to me, and I just wanted to make sure that I knew what was going on the inside. I'm not quite as in tune as some of you, so I have to write it out. And so I wrote down this topic and what was specifically stressing me and what I felt like I needed to do for the stress to go down and how that can kind of go away, and then the next topic and then the next topic and the next topic. I had quite a list there on that piece of paper. But for me, on Tuesday, I just woke up thinking, I have got more to do today. I've got more to do this week than I think that I can pull off. And I might not be able to make it. And so my stress levels were high and my worry levels were up. And I'll get back to that in a second, but we are going to start a series in January on Joseph. I'm looking forward to this. I've prepared for this for a while now. But for this month, we're going to keep things entirely simple. And what we're going to do is we're going to spend some time looking at simple, well-known, encouraging, helpful, if I said that again, helpful stories of Jesus, and we see in the Gospels to reset our minds, to reset our hearts on some of the basics. Things that we know, but things that are just going to encourage us and be good for us during this season. Today I want to talk about fretting. And I'm using this word fretting. It's a little bit of an odd word, but I use it because it helps me pay attention better. If I was to use the word worry or stress or anxieties, those kind of have connotations to them, maybe from the Bible or whatever, where I might be like, okay, I have to make this a spiritual thing or whatever. But when I use the word fretting, what I'm trying to communicate is life stuff. Whether it's good or bad, just life stuff where it's just a little hard to figure out how you're going to get through the day. Where it's just a little overwhelming, like running just a little bit too fast. And so we're going to talk about fretting, and we're going to look at this simple, well-known, wonderful story of Jesus in Luke chapter 10, when he goes to visit and is hosted by Martha and Mary. I'm going to read this story real quick. The words are going to be on the screen. It's only a few verses long. But this is what we read in Luke chapter 10, starting in verse 38. It says, while they were traveling, he, Jesus, entered a village, and a woman named Martha welcomed him into her home. She had a sister named Mary who also sat at the Lord's feet and was listening to what he said. But Martha was distracted by her many tasks. And she came up and asked, Lord, don't you care that my sister has left me to serve alone? So tell her to give me a hand. The Lord answered her, Martha, Martha, you are worried and upset about many things. But one thing is necessary. Mary has made the right choice, and it will not be taken from her. That's the story. Luke chapter 10. First, I want to make some simple observations about Martha. I'm going to take some observations about Martha, and I'm going to tell you straight out that my opinion of Martha throughout the Gospels, she shows up a couple different times here in the Gospels. My opinion of Martha is extremely high. I have a very high opinion of Martha. I strongly respect her. I love how she interacts with Jesus over the Gospels. And I feel entirely uncomfortable with how she's portrayed when I've heard different people teach through this passage. There's some things about Martha that really impress me. One of the things that really impresses me about Martha is, it is Martha who invites Jesus into her home. Wow. Martha invites Jesus into her home. I mean, this is biblical Christianity 101, and in a very spiritual sense, Jesus talks about that future day when I was a stranger and you welcomed me in, and we're like, when did we ever see you as a stranger? And he said, whatever you did for the least of these, you've done for me. In a very spiritual sense, there is that reality for us as believers to welcome in strangers, like welcoming in Jesus. But this isn't in a spiritual sense. This is actually Jesus of Nazareth, in the flesh, in her home. What? Amazing. Amazing. And if you've ever had someone in your home or wanted to host someone or host somebody well, it can be hard work. It can be hard work. It can be expensive. It can be expensive. And all through the Bible, you see this God-delighting Christian thing about hospitality and how good it is and how wonderful it is. And so I see Martha, and she starts this story entirely on track. What a wonderful thing, what a God-honoring thing to invite Jesus and the disciples into her home. She starts off on track here, and then And then secondly, we read that Martha, it says, was distracted by her many tasks. She was distracted by her many tasks. And this is where I start seeing people wag that finger at Martha. Martha, Martha, Martha. Martha, Martha, Martha. Jesus is in your home and you're ignoring him. Oh man, if it was me, I would be sitting at Jesus' feet. Shame, shame, Martha. Shame, shame. We know your name. Too busy for Jesus, Martha. Too busy for Jesus. Martha, Martha, Martha. You know, maybe you've heard people come across that way. I look at this story, though, and I can't believe that Martha is hosting Jesus, that she says Jesus in her home, Jesus of Nazareth, and all of his disciples, and people sit back 2,000 years later judging her for working hard to prepare food and to host well and to have the food and the drink and just to make sure that everything is sorted and provide this great environment for Jesus, who is going to be her Savior, who is going to forgive her of all her sins. And I just think, what are we doing to look back and just be like, Martha didn't have time for Jesus? I'm like, wow, I am not prepared to go there. Wow. She's invited him into her home, and of course she has a lot to do. And of course she's got a lot on her mind. She's doing an amazing thing here. And I don't know if you've ever felt overwhelmed a bit. I'm sure that you have. I'm confident that you have. And you've ever been at that one of those times where you just wish someone would see that you need help, that you could really use someone to just volunteer, and you don't want to say anything, but you just wish someone would notice and stand up and help you. And so you're keeping the cool on the outside, but on the inside you're like, wow, I could use some help here. And so Martha's there, and she's having this experience. She's overwhelmed. This is a big deal. It's a huge deal. It's actually probably a bigger deal if she fully grasped what she was doing and the significance that this was going to be in the Bible. You know, I think she would be even more freaked out, but I don't think she fully got this. And if you've ever been in that situation where you've got a lot going on, you're wishing people would help you, and maybe you start looking at them really intently, like, please see me and help. And then maybe annoyance and frustration. Who is here that could be helping me, but that is not? And anger and frustration builds up, and then all of a sudden you speak to them in your kind voice, spawn of Satan, help me. Why are you just being lazy and not seeing that I need help here? And then the anger just bursts out of you. And I see Martha here, and I get it. I've never had those feelings, but maybe some of you haven't. I'm just kidding. And you just feel overwhelmed. You feel overwhelmed, like you're running down a grass bank and you're about to spill, and you think you're not going to be able to pull this out. You're worried and you're not sure, and you could just use some help, overwhelmed by all that needs to be done. And so she says to Jesus, Martha says to Jesus, tell my sister Mary to help me. Before I go on and continue going, I want to continue to drive home this point. The Bible honors hard work. The Bible honors hard work. And it really honors being responsible. And it would be way too simplistic to teach this story and say, wow, we shouldn't work hard. Instead, we should just sit at the feet of Jesus. That is just way too simplistic of an understanding for this passage. Think about Jesus. Jesus spends time where he's tired, and his goal is to get away by himself to be with his Father. And we talked about this a couple weeks ago, and he gets to the shore, and he's trying to get away, but then he sees the people, and they're like sheep without a shepherd, and he has compassion on them. And so he's trying to get away to be alone with his Father, his Heavenly Father, but he ends up spending the entire day healing and teaching and serving and ministering to the crowds. Just pouring himself out that day instead of getting away. And there's lots of things, though, about hard work. In the Thessalonians, if a person doesn't work, they shouldn't eat. They were dealing with laziness in the church of Thessalonica. Like I referenced Jesus, when we're standing before God someday, and this idea of it not being like, hey, you didn't pray enough. And I do really believe in prayer. I'm a big fan of prayer. I'm not saying anything against prayer. But that evaluation was like, people were hungry. Did you feed them? People needed clothes. Did you give them something to wear? People needed hosting. Did you host them? It's those. Did you do these things? Did you do these things? Paul, the apostle, mentioned how much harder he works than everyone else. Hard work and being responsible and taking serious to do a good job of what Jesus has entrusted with you, it's highly esteemed in the Bible. So I just refuse to judge Martha. I refuse to judge Martha for what she's going through. I would be a hypocrite if I did that sort of a thing. And I'm not going to say that she shouldn't be hosting Jesus well. In fact, I think it should be noted that Jesus doesn't tell her to stop working and to sit down. That's not how the story goes. Martha, you should stop serving me and have a seat. He says instead, you are worried. He says to Martha, you are worried, you are fretting, you are stressed, you are worried and upset about many things. That's what Jesus identifies as the problem. Not that she's serving, but that she's worried and upset about many things. And as far as Mary here, she has chosen the best thing. She has chosen she says, well, the one thing is necessary. Mary's chosen it. Now, necessary is such a strong word. I mean, the disciples are probably looking at Jesus thinking, I think food is necessary right now. I'm thinking something to drink would be pretty necessary right now. Jesus, shh. Stop talking. I don't think they ever said to Jesus, stop talking, but I don't know. They might have been thinking that on the inside. And only one thing is necessary, and it's not like Mary, it's not like the serving is the wrong thing to do. It's just that Mary has chosen to do something here so special and so unique. He's just not going to take that away from her. This moment of sitting at Jesus' feet. The Bible honors serving the Lord. But the key is serving the Lord with gladness. Serving the Lord with gladness. And it's great to serve the Lord, but if you find yourself like Martha, serving but worried, serving but stressed, serving but upset about so many things, it's time to recalibrate a little bit. It's time to look inside quite a bit. It's time to rethink this, because it's not just about serving, but it's about serving the Lord with gladness. I tell this story several times, these next two, because they're hugely impactful for me. My sister, she came and she moved to Glasgow a few years ago for 2 years or so. And she came and she moved here, and one of her observations after she'd been here for a while is, Brian, this is spoken like only a sister can. And it's like, Brian, you don't laugh anymore. Oof. And at first I'm like, a little bit defensive there. I can't remember if that's my conflict language. Wade can probably tell you. I can't remember if that's my conflict language, but I feel a little bit defensive. And I was like, well, you that's not fair. You usually see me when I'm on holiday, or when I'm in the sun, and that is neither holiday nor sun in Glasgow, and so you can't hold that against me. But those words, they were speaking to me. You don't laugh anymore. What's going on? And about a year later, my wife, I remember it was like in August several years back, and my wife asked me this question. Just had one of those profound impacts on my life, and church was going good and all that sort of stuff. But she looked at me and she said, Brian, do you love what you do? I'm like, well, Of course I love what I do. I'm doing what God made me to do. I'm teaching. I'm supposed to be teaching, and I'm leading this church, and it's a great church, and I love being on this church, and the people in my life are great, and my team is great, and all this kind of stuff. And she just kind of looked to me, and she's like, yeah, but you don't look like you love what you do. You look stressed all the time. You look worried all the time. You look overwhelmed all the time. And basically what she's saying, you may be serving the Lord exactly how he wants you to be serving, but you're missing something really important because you're not serving the Lord with gladness. And you don't seem to be behind the scenes enjoying what you're doing. And that was me. I was like Martha. I was like Martha, working hard, working to serve Jesus and Jesus' people, but I found myself so worried about things and upset about things and doing things like what Martha did and just kind of like, hey, why won't you help me and all that kind of stuff. But from that moment on, I began this life quest since Jesus through my wife spoke to me about this, and I don't want to just be someone who serves the Lord. I want to be someone who's full of the joy of the Lord. I don't want the adrenaline of the Lord to be my strength. I want the joy of the Lord to be my strength. And I want to serve the Lord with gladness, and a gladness on the inside that spills out of me, a very real gladness. How are you doing at this in life? This gladness on the inside, spilling out. Or are you finding yourself a little bit more like a Martha these days? Being about maybe what you feel God's called you to be about, but maybe not full of gladness and joy. Maybe you feel like life's a little bit out of control today or whatever, and you're not sure how things are going to turn out. And you think that maybe there's a good chance you're not going to make it through today or through this week or through this month. Maybe there's disappointments with people, with life. Maybe there's grief. Maybe there's grief going on. Maybe there's discouragements or stress or strain or worry. And you can think to yourself, I have every good reason to not be full of joy right now. I have every good reason to be worried and upset. I have every good reason for this. And I guess some of you might live in that place. You just live there in that place. And to that I say, I completely understand how you're feeling, but we do have another choice. And that's the way that Mary chose. That's the way of Mary. Mary sat at Jesus' feet and was listening to what he said. The biggest change in my life as I have set my heart to serve the Lord with gladness has become learning to do what we see Mary doing here in this story. On Tuesday, when I made my stress list and I wrote out all these things that were stressing me out and I was deciding what to do first, I felt like all these urgent pressures, and we all respond differently when we're under the gun or are feeling under pressure. My instinct in that moment was to make it happen so that the stress would go away. I'm like, I'm just going to punch this out. I'm going to act. I'm going to do stuff. I'm going to do these things so that my stress levels go down and my peace goes back up. And so that was and everything in my head was like, get going, get going, get going. But instead what I did is what I always do at that time, and I put aside my notes. I very literally did this. And I got up, it was time, and I walked into the other room, and I got down onto my knees on the carpet there, and I put my head down, and I spent an hour in prayer with Jesus. And my prayer began very honestly, Jesus, I am entirely stressed right now, and I don't think I have enough to get through this day. I don't think I have what it takes to get this sorted. And so then I went through this process of what I do when I'm worried and upset about this or that or whatever. And I pictured the cross there, and I do this very frequently, and I just imagine myself taking this worry and this stress, the things that were stressing me, and placing them at the foot of the cross. Like, Jesus, would you take this stress? It's not that I'm not going to do anything about it. I'm dealing with the stress. Only the stress and the worries and the upsettedness on the inside. Jesus, will you take this stress? Will you take this worry? Will you take these feelings of overwhelmedness, this fretting? Would you take this? And instead, would you give me joy? And would you give me peace on the inside? And I just spent time trying to handing over these things that are worried and saying, Lord, would you help me? Would you help me get through the day? Would you help me with this time? That's what sitting at the feet of Jesus means to me. That's what it is. And can I just say that I know no other way. I know no other way to live with a measure of joy and peace through all the types of seasons in life. And I've had many over the last couple of years. Through all the types of seasons in life, I know no other way to live with consistent joy and peace than to take that hour every day and hand over what needs to be handed over, and to take from Jesus what needs to be taken up. In the most painful times, and I have had very painful times over the last couple of years, they have not entirely stolen my joy because of that time with Jesus. In stressful times, have not entirely shipwrecked my joy and my peace. The disappointing times have not stolen my joy. In confusing times, they've not been able to steal it as I continue day after day, week after week, year after year, stopping, getting down, spending time at the feet of Jesus, handing over what's overwhelming me, and asking Jesus for life and joy and peace. Now, my times with Jesus in the morning are very different because life is very different. And different days and sometimes I spend time in a psalm. And more recently, just one psalm and just kind of praying through it or whatever. But sometimes I've got nothing. Sometimes I'm just so exhausted and overwhelmed and kind of broken on the inside. And you know what I do? I grab a blanket, take a pillow, I lay flat on the couch as if I'm going to sleep, but I'm not, but I'm exhausted. And I lay there and I wrap up and I just facing up, I'm like, Jesus, I am exhausted. It's not very hard to pray. I'm just saying exactly what's going on. I am so exhausted. Help me. Holy Spirit, come and help me. And pretty much when I'm tired, that's all I've got for an hour. Lord, help me. Help me. Give me strength. Give me strength. I wait for you. Come and minister to me. That's in the tired times. Sometimes I'm full of joy and enthusiasm and strength, and I get to pray for you. And I get to think about the things that are going on in your life. I get to pray for our elders here at the church and for our staff and for my friends and people I know. I get to pray for my kids, pray for my wife. I pray for my kids' future spouses because I have no idea what's going on in their life, but it's a big deal to me, and it will become a big deal, and so I'm praying for them, and sometimes, I'm ready to go to war and pray and battle with God, but it just depends on the day. But that hour of just spending time with Jesus, setting aside, I've been doing that since 2012, and there's a lot more to the story, but it's become a life source for me, to guard it and then learn how to fill that hour. And I find it amazing that every week I have a reason to not do that. In fact, many days I've got a reason why maybe not today. It's got to guard it. You got to guard it. You got to prioritize it. I'm a pastor. Surprise. I'm also, though, a missionary, and I'm part of a director of a missionary team. I'm trying to convince other people to take this up, but I can't seem to con anybody else into doing this. So I have to go on these phone calls, and if anybody in my organization is watching this right now, they're great, and I love them. No, they're a little bit challenging. But I had a phone call with my with fellow team leaders who direct teams around the world, and what we were talking about is what are our life practices in this area of just setting aside time to be with Jesus. And they started in the south of the planet and worked up, South Africa, and kind of worked up through the planet. And we just happened to be way too far north for the sun, so I ended up going last. But just hearing story after story. Well, since we had this baby born 2 years ago, I just haven't been able to find time. Since I started this training course, I've just been too busy. Well, since I changed responsibilities and changed jobs, it just hasn't quite fit in my schedule. And I just was able to hear story after story after story of all these people with real reasons why spending time at the feet of Jesus didn't quite fit into their lives. And I'm just thinking to myself, we live in a world full of Marthas. We live in a world full of Marthas who need to learn from Mary. And who can sit at the feet of Jesus precisely when there is so much to do and so much that needs to be done. Yesterday we had a marriage conference here, and it was great. And one of the and thank you to Adam and all of the team who spent so much time working on that. And for those of you who were here, it was great. And one of the things that they were saying about marriage, and you would guess this about marriage, is if you want to have a great marriage, you got to prioritize it. And you got to focus on it. I'm like, yes, that's true. And the same is true with Jesus and life and joy and peace. And if you want to have a closeness to Jesus, you got to prioritize it in the same way. And it's amazing to me that we could all say developing a strong marriage takes time. And cultivating a life close to Jesus takes time. We get that. We understand that. And yet it's amazing how those hugely important things can take such a back seat on our daily plans. When I set aside this time starting in 2012, I thought that there was no way. I had zero belief that I was going to be able to maintain this. Because all of my life up to that point, I had tried and failed and tried and failed and tried and failed, and I couldn't seem to make it work and be consistent in my life. And I'm just not that get up early and pray kind of guy. And so I didn't feel like it was possible. And in my case, though, I had one of those rare moments where I felt like Jesus said, I want this hour, Brian. I want this particular hour. And I was like, Jesus, I have got things to do during that hour. I've got meetings during that hour. I've got things that have to happen during that hour. And I don't know how that's even possible to work there. But you know what? In order to give Jesus this hour, I had to change my schedule. I had to change meetings. It affected other people's lives as I tried to clear this space that I needed to clear. I had to cancel some things. I had to change some of the way that I used my time. I had to carve out this time to sit at the feet of Jesus. Because the thing is, my time was full, and I have no doubt that your time is full. I just wonder if it's full of the most important things for living a life of life and joy and peace. I have no doubt that your life is full. I just wonder if it's time to make some changes. Some changes. I'll tell you what, I know this for certain. If you do not carve out the time, if you do not proactively guard the time, you won't do it. You won't do it, and your life will be a little bit more like Martha than like Mary. And you will feel more along the lines of worried and upset about many things than a life more of peace. And how do you guard it? Well, it starts off just believing that it's legit, that it makes a difference, that it affects everything. And just like you, sometimes I'm going to look at my day, and very often I look at my day, and on Tuesday I looked at my day, and I thought to myself, I do not have enough time to give an hour to Jesus right now. But you know what I've discovered? It's been my experience consistently. It's been my experience that an hour given to Jesus each morning never ruins my day. That's free. An hour given to Jesus every morning never ruins my day. Even though 5 minutes before it starts, I am convinced that there is no way I can do my day without giving up this hour, let alone giving this hour to Jesus. There's been some hard moments for me since 2012. And I might have gotten through them, but could I have gotten through them with joy, serving the Lord with gladness and joy? I think that only can happen by consistently learning to discipline yourself to sit at the feet of Jesus. We don't have time for this now, but if you ever are reading through Luke 6 in the near future, notice the flow of events. Jesus on a mountainside to pray, alone with God. He comes down and he appoints the 12, and then with them they go into ministry. In the very simple, you can see this pattern. Abide alone with God, decision-making flowing from that, and life and ministry flowing from that. Just pay attention to that next time you're in Luke 6. And if you're thinking to yourself, hey, Brian, I'm not a pastor. I'm not a missionary. I'm not a missionary. Well, then I'm just really curious. What do you think you are? What do you think you're doing here? What do you think it means to be a part of this kingdom of priests? Why do you think God has you in your city and the people in your life? You are here, whatever your job, to serve the Lord with gladness in whatever your context, whatever your field, whatever your training, whatever your schooling, whatever your job, whatever your social spheres, to be a missionary into your world. And what I love about the story of Mary and Martha, it doesn't take place with Jesus towards his disciples. It takes place between these two sisters who are hosting Jesus and who have brought Jesus into their home. Not missionaries, not evangelists, not apostles. People like us. I want you to thrive in your life. I want you to thrive, and I want your worries and your stresses to go down. And I know you want that too. And I want joy and peace to go up in your life. And so let me say it as clear as I know how. You cannot shortcut your way to joy and peace. You cannot shortcut your way to a lifetime of joy and peace. But the good news is it's extremely simple. You just need to sit at the feet of Jesus every morning. Hand over your cares. I think the verse says, cast your anxieties upon him, or cast your cares upon him, because he cares for you. That sort of a thing. The best thing that I can offer you this season is an invitation to find this hour, to make this hour, to pray and to lay down the things that are worrying you, to pray for your friends and family, or ask God to minister to you in your life, and spend that hour, and then get up and go for it, and go hard for it, and run after it, and serve the Lord diligently and with gladness. And again, like, my assumption is no time works for you. That you don't have the time to do this. That this is not possible. But I say, friends, trust me. Trust me in this. This is life-changing when you put it to practice. Life-changing and worth changing everything for. So my challenges today are simple. Number 1, pick an hour. Number 2, give it to Jesus. Number 3, guard it. Number 4, spend it with him. It's so simple and life-changing. I urge you to think about this. Pick an hour, give it to Jesus, guard it, and spend it with him.